Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth, and in today's video I'm going to be talking to you about attachment trauma and longing for your ex. So in this video I'm going to be talking to you guys about attachment and how trauma to the bond with our caregivers affects our romantic relationships. And it actually has a huge impact on how breakups affect us as adults. So you're going to learn why you may be having obsessive thoughts about your ex and longing for your ex where you just can't get them off of your mind. I'm going to talk to you about some of the factors about why breakups affect everyone differently, and then I'm going to get into an email from somebody who's obsessed with their ex and they just can't get them out of their mind. So, as you probably could figure, breakups are unique to everybody. And there are so many different factors that affect a person and how they are, feeling and experiencing their own breakup. There are factors such as, were you the one that ended the relationship? Or were you the one that was broken up with? How long did you date them? How attached to them were you? How strong was your desire to be with them? What is your attachment style? These are just some of the factors that affect someone and how they feel when they're going through a breakup. Now, some people have an incredibly difficult time moving on from a breakup, and they obsess over trying to get their ex back. For them, breakups are extremely painful. And remember, breakups literally cause you physical pain. And people often get tremendous amounts of anxiety, which is separation anxiety. And they become depressed because they lost the object that they love. Now, as Freud is famous for saying, we are never so helpless against suffering as when we love, and never so helplessly unhappy when we have lost the object of our love or its love. So, what does any of this have to do with wanting our ex back and obsessing over our ex and longing for our ex? Well, it has to do with our attachment to others. You see, our body is hardwired to attach and to connect to others. It's for survival. And it's the main strategy survival for human beings, bonding and connecting to others. We attach to our caregivers, and we unconsciously know, even as children, that without them, it means death. Because children of human beings can't survive on their own. They just can't. They won't survive without a caregiver. So we're wired to connect with our caregivers, and our caregivers are wired to attach with us as well. So, even as children, and we've attached and bonded to our caregivers, when we separate from our parents, it feels like death. When we separate from our romantic partners as adults, it feels like death. Very similar feelings. Now, here is what is so important to understand. All of this information is going to give you a real understanding about why breakups are so painful. And you have to know about attaching and attachment and how that affects us to know how the detaching affects us, right? So think about it. I'm explaining to you guys why we're attached and how we attach and how it affects us when we're attached, but also how we feel when we're detached, because that's essentially a breakup, isn't it? You're detaching that bond from that person. You're severing that bond. So you have to understand that it goes hand in hand. That's why I'm trying to explain this to you guys. It's really important. We form attachments with our caregivers, like I said. But there are all different types of attachments. We don't just have an attachment and everybody's attachment is the same. It's completely different. We can form healthy, secure attachments where our parents were attentive to us. They were present with us. They paid attention to what we needed. They gave us the love, attention, affection. They made us feel special. They made us feel cared for. You know, so that's a really good, secure attachment. But if your parents, for whatever reason, didn't give you enough security, maybe they have mental health issues, maybe they have an avoidant attachment style where they're not close to others, they're not attentive to your needs, maybe they're busy, maybe they worked all the time, whatever the reasons, something went wrong, and so we form a different attachment style. It's not secure. It could be anxious, where we're constantly feeling abandoned by someone, and we're constantly worried that we're going to lose our parents, and we become hyper vigilant and sensitive to any little thing that could indicate that our parents are going to abandon us. Or we can begin to distrust our parents and stop believing that they're going to take care of us. We just give up, we get angry, we get resentful, and we lose trust in them, and we form an avoidant attachment style. So what you need to know is that the abandonment, the neglect, the hurt, and the pain can be traumatic. Okay? And the more intense and painful the trauma is, the more symptoms you're going to have, and the intensity of those symptoms are going to be more severe. Right? Think about that. Okay? Try and grasp that. It's a tough concept, but once you start to see it, and you start to see the patterns, and you could start to see how you're feeling as an adult, it will allow you to look back at your childhood and take a real good look at maybe things that you didn't see clearly growing up. Okay? I believe that people who have a very difficult time with a breakup have had attachment injuries in their childhood. Now, that's not to say that breakups are easy. They're usually not. Except for the avoidant attachment style people. They act like they don't care. Although I think inside they're hurting too. They don't show it as much as other people. Attachment injuries. That's what I want to talk to you guys. They could come from any number of different things. You could get an attachment injury from a major life event, like a parent abandoning you, leaving, or moving away, or a death. That can be one way you get an attachment injury. Or it could be your experience with your caregivers over the years, and the pain and the suffering of being ignored, abandoned, neglected for so long cause the attachment trauma. And people who have had that happen tend to have major abandonment issues and form an anxious or an avoidant attachment style. So you may have heard me say this in other videos, but I'm going to remind you because we're talking about trauma. If a trauma is bad enough, if a trauma is serious enough, severe enough, our brain can't separate the past from the present. Okay? It has a very difficult time. Let me just think of an example off the fly. Imagine you walked out the front door and you went to your mailbox. And when you opened the mailbox, there was a giant hornet nest in there, and they all flew out at once, and you got stung 40 times, and you ran in the house, and your whole face was swollen. Okay, crazy example, but the point is that every time you went to that mailbox, you would be anxious, you wouldn't want to go, you'd be, even though your rational thoughts are thinking there's probably not another hornet nest in there, you're still going to be like every single time. See how the past and the present are still affected by the trauma from the past? Just reminding you of that so you can see these patterns here and how it goes. So, if you've had a trauma with your attachment to your caregivers, you're going to feel that same intense pain with your romantic partners. That's what I'm trying to get you to see, these patterns, how they work. Because there are tons of similarities between the relationship with our parents and the relationship with our romantic partners. And, you know, I talk about attraction, and I've explained how the relationships with our parents kind of create our blueprint for love, right? So the way that we got love from our parents is the way we kind of think love should be with our romantic partners, even if it was unhealthy. It just feels familiar to us, and we just unconsciously created the same thing with our romantic partners. Even we're drawn to the negative traits of our caregivers. It's interesting because we're drawn to the negative more so than the positive. And, you know, there's different debates as to why that is. Is it that we're trying to correct what happened to us? Perhaps we're just drawn to it on an unconscious level. I'm not going to debate that here because we don't really have the answer to that. I've got a really good email here from Brian, who is really struggling with his breakup. And I'll just go ahead and get into it. And he says, "Hey Craig, I wanted to say that your videos and your channel have been incredibly helpful. I have already learned a ton from you, and I'm looking forward to our Skype coaching. Thanks to your videos, I know that I have an anxious attachment style. My father left our home when I was about 2 years old, and he moved out of state. My mom was always stressed out and upset. Bills, taking care of us, and my brother who had issues. Here's what's been going on with me. My ex and I broke up about 2 months ago, and I can't stop thinking about her. I feel absolutely obsessed, and I don't know what to do to stop. I'm depressed, and I'm anxious all the time. I get sick to my stomach all the time, and I'm constantly having diarrhea." Well, I know what that's like. I empathize with you. I truly do. I've been in your situation. That is why I love helping you guys and putting this stuff out for you guys, because I've been there and I was so lost looking for advice and looking for help, and everything that I found online was just contradicting and just made me more and more frustrated and doubtful on what to do, because I knew that each little thing could cause me to blow it. And eventually I did, especially in one situation. But I get it. I've been where you're at. Disconnection hurts. You want to be conscious that when you lose the connection, which is a human being's main source for safety and comfort, you lose the ability to regulate your emotions. The anxiety causes people to lose the ability to regulate their emotions. It causes intense grief and physical pain. Remember, it makes you feel like you're dying. And the separation anxiety is going to cause you to have obtrusive thoughts. What do I mean when I say that? Well, think about it. If you're going through a breakup right now, you can't keep the thoughts out of your mind, and it's like you're so just preoccupied with them. It's just exhausting, right? It's overwhelming. You can't even focus on doing work. You don't want to go out with friends. You can't think straight. You're just constantly consumed. And like I said earlier, the people that really struggle with this, you know, for long periods of time and intensity, like severe intensity, there's a good likelihood they had an attachment trauma with their caregivers. So, let me go on. I believe for many people, it's because breakups trigger an attachment injury from our childhood, right? That breakup that we're having currently, it triggers that separation anxiety and that trauma that we had with our caregivers, and because it's unresolved, it's just gonna keep coming up. And remember, if a trauma is severe enough, we can't tell the difference between the past and the present. So what happens to us? We have these obsessive, obtrusive thoughts that just keep replaying in our head. We keep having these events that replay over and over again, memories. But you have to understand that our memories are distorted, right? Because it's not a video. And what happens to us is that we were feeling something at the time where it happened. And that is kind of like seeing things through a different kind of lens. Like if you put on sunglasses, you're now seeing things through differently. Well, whatever that feeling is, it's like putting on a different lens in front of you, and it affects you. So you don't see everything like if you watched it with a video camera. You're experiencing how you felt it. And then the interesting thing is that the more you think about it, the more it gets distorted in the way that it actually happened, and the way that you felt at the time, and the way you remembered it slightly changes over and over and over, and it just keeps getting more and more distorted. I can remember from personal experience that when I was going through breakups, I really, really struggled with bargaining, and just constantly bargaining in my own mind over and over again. If I had only said this, if she had only done that, if we had only done this that day, if I had only stood up to her about that, if I had only made more effort with that. Oh my God. And it's so hard because you just fantasize that if things had just gone a little bit differently, they would still love you. And I know for me, I couldn't stop that. It was really difficult. So I want to get into a little bit about why we obsess over our ex. This is interesting. The degree to which you're feeling that intense emotion, that intense anxiety, that separation anxiety, that longing for your ex, that desire for your ex, that obsessing for their ex, the degree to which you're experiencing it right now, in the present, is a mirror to the degree and the intensity of the attachment trauma during your childhood. And when I say childhood, it doesn't have to be childhood. It could be in your adult life. Maybe there was a serious breakup, or something happened, a trauma. But most likely, most likely, it's in your early childhood. The first 2 years is when we really form that attachment. Maybe first 3 years, but really it's the first 2 that are the strongest. So, think about that. The intensity you're feeling now is really a reflection of what happened then. Kind of makes you sit back and go, wow, what happened to me? I know when I was learning about this, I thought that to myself, and I thought to myself, you know, breakups are just so incredibly painful for me. And, you know, obviously that's a big reason why I do what I do, and why I wanted to figure this out, and why I want to help everybody understand this stuff. Because I know what that pain feels like, and for me, maybe it was more intense than other people. I don't know, I can't tell. There's no way for me to gauge that. But to think that as an adult, I'm having that much anxiety, that much obsessive thoughts, that much struggle with these obtrusive thoughts and inability to calm myself or soothe myself, I look and I kind of imagine what I was like in my childhood and think, I must have been so anxious. I must have been like totally just in a fog and unable to concentrate. You know, I used to play with toys and action figures a lot, and I think that that probably had a lot to do with it. I could sit there and focus and create my world and focus the world into this one little area where it wasn't so overwhelming, and it gave me more control, because I don't think I was feeling much control as a child. So, let me go on a little bit more. I had some more notes for you guys here. I know for me personally, I did not feel heard as a child. I did not feel heard by my mom. She was a wonderful mom in a lot of ways, but I didn't feel heard by her. I always felt like my feelings were pushed aside, because my stepdad, well, I had 2 stepdads, they had violent tempers, they were always screaming and yelling, and my mom, instead of standing up for me, would kind of be like, well, just go in your room, and she would minimize my feelings. And that affected me. That affects me as an adult still, because it was like, your feelings aren't important because I don't want to deal with this raging, crazy man, screaming and yelling, and one of them was punching holes in the walls, bipolar. So you can imagine what that was like growing up with that. So, I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel understood. I didn't feel that my thoughts or feelings were important. I felt they were minimized. And that's a big part of why I do what I do now. Because I know what it's like to feel not heard or uncared for. And so I offer it to you guys because that's what I was hoping to get when I was in my childhood. So I give it to others. Because we often want to give other people what we need. So, the intensity of the feelings of the separation is the attachment injury. Unresolved childhood trauma, the grief coming out into the present moment. The trauma from the past. That abandonment, all those issues about abandonment and fear and anxiety are presenting themselves in the present moment. And what we're doing, and this is interesting, is what we're actually doing is taking those issues. Now remember, we're really trying to deal with these past issues, these unresolved past issues, and we're projecting them onto this person, our ex, the current loss. But it's not really about them as much as we think it is. It's also really about these unresolved issues. If we had resolved them, if we can resolve them, then the pain from the current breakup won't be as severe, it won't be as intense. Because what you have to do is you have to learn to recognize that the object that we're longing for, the person that we're longing for, and those intense emotions of a longing are not so much about them as it is your caregivers and those issues. So if you can kind of step back and really see, wow, I have to deal with these issues of my past, and can recognize that it's not so much about this person, it's about all those unmet needs that you had from back here, that you fantasized and you projected onto your partner, your romantic partner, because that's what we do. We fantasize that our romantic partner is going to give us everything that we never got and longed for in childhood. And now, when they break up with us, we feel like we're never going to get them. Because that was the person that was supposed to deliver it. And now we feel like hopeless and we're terrified, oh my God, I'm never going to get them. That's why we're so obsessed. Because you're trying to comfort yourself. It's really about the comfort and the idea of having your needs met and believing that this other person, you need this other person. You may not even think about it. It could be all unconscious that this person is going to meet all of your needs. And now you're unconsciously afraid you're not going to have them met, that you're not going to be comforted, and it's going to send your separation anxiety level through the roof. So, what can you do? Well, like I said, one thing that you can do is start to really recognize that the issue isn't so much about your ex as it is those unmet needs never getting fulfilled. So, one way you can reduce your anxiety in the short term, this isn't like a long-term fix, but in the short term, if you're truly wanting your ex back, I mean, you might be in a situation where you still think they're a good fit and you want to have them back and you want to work things out. If you're in that situation, remind yourself and constantly remind yourself that there's a very good chance that your ex is going to want to revisit getting back with you. Remind yourself of that. Because you're feeling hopeless. You're feeling like they're gone forever. Those unmet needs are gone and that's it. They're bye-bye forever. No. If they were attached to you, there's a really good chance that they are going to want to revisit the idea of getting back with you. Remember what I talk about. Feelings change like the clouds in the sky, and a woman's interest level will rise and fall like the sea. Take comfort in that. Take comfort in knowing that the way she feels today may not be the way she feels a week from now, 2 weeks from now, maybe even 6 months from now. Of course, you don't want to be like thinking, oh my God, 6 months. But what if you moved on and for those 6 months you really worked on yourself and you made a lot of progress? Well, when they came back around, if you wanted to work it out, you would be so much stronger, so much more confident, so much more secure. You'd be better at regulating your emotions, calming your anxiety, soothing yourself. Okay? But what you need to do, and you know, a lot of you guys want to know the plan, and I talk about this extensively in my other videos, but you know, just remind yourself that you need to leave your ex alone right now. I know it's incredibly painful because you're afraid they might forget about you, they're going to move on, they're going to find somebody else, you're going to be all alone, but if they're attached to you, there's a good chance they're going to revisit the idea of reconciling with you, getting back together with you. So, leave them alone. What you want to do is you need to give them space And don't contact them for any reason. No calling, no texting, no social media. Why? Because they need to feel separation anxiety from you. They need to believe that they are going to lose you unless they do something about it. Right? So, that's all I really wanted to cover in this video. Obviously, I'm going to talk more about these topics in upcoming videos. If you liked this video and you want to see me do more content about it, put a like on the video, leave a comment below. I do read them and I do message back and forth to you guys. And make sure you subscribe because I post videos Monday through Friday. And when you want to get my help personally, go to my website, askcraig.net, and sign up for the coaching option that works best for you. I'm Craig Kenneth, and I will talk with you soon.